Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crossroads Stories. I hope you're ready for this one because today's story is a roller coaster. It's got everything: a luxury penthouse, a tropical paradise, a betrayal that stings, and a revenge plot so calculated it deserves an Oscar. Today, we're hearing from Phil. Now, Phil is a guy who did what a lot of us dream of doing. He worked hard, retired early, and moved halfway across the world to Malaysia to enjoy the good life. He thought he was signing up for endless sunshine, spicy food, and relaxation. Instead, he found himself starring in a real-life soap opera. But here's the thing about Phil. He's a retired architect. He knows how to build things, but he also knows exactly how to dismantle them, brick by brick. When he found out his wife was playing him for a fool, he didn't scream and he didn't cry. He just planned. So, if you're a fan of justice being served ice cold in a hot climate, you're going to love this. Before we hand the mic over to Phil, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button like it's your ex's windshield. Okay, maybe not that hard. We don't want to break your screen. And hit subscribe so you never miss out on the tea. All right, let's head over to Kuala Lumpur. Here is Phil's story in his own words. Retirement is a funny thing. You spend 40 years in the States running on a hamster wheel, convincing yourself that the finish line is a hammock and a beach. I spent my life in New York, working as an architect for high-rise commercial buildings. My life was steel, glass, concrete, and deadlines. I was good at it. I made a lot of money, invested wisely, and when I hit 62, I decided I was done with the cold winters and the aggressive honking of taxis. I chose Malaysia, specifically Kuala Lumpur. It's a place where your dollar stretches until it snaps. The food is incredible, and the weather is hot enough to melt the arthritis right out of your joints. I bought a penthouse in the Mont Kiara area, a place full of expats and greenery, perched high enough that the noise of the traffic below sounds like a distant ocean. From my living room, I have a direct view of the Petronas Towers glittering in the distance. It was supposed to be my paradise, and for a while it was. A big part of that paradise was Olivia. I met Olivia about 6 months after I landed. She was 34, a local Chinese-Malaysian woman with a smile that could stop traffic and a taste for the finer things that I was more than happy to provide. I'm not delusional. I know how it looks. A 62-year-old white guy with a woman nearly half his age. I know the whispers. Sugar daddy. ATM. I've heard it all. But I honestly thought we were different. We had chemistry. She was smart, she was funny, and she made me feel young again. I didn't mind taking care of her. In fact, I enjoyed it. I paid for the lifestyle she craved. The designer handbags, the European car, the brunch dates at 5-star hotels. It was all part of the package. I looked at it as an investment in my own happiness. She was the beautiful centerpiece of my golden years. I gave her everything. And in return, I expected the one thing that costs nothing: loyalty. It's funny how the cheapest things are often the hardest for people to give. The day my life turned upside down started out completely normal. I was scheduled to be on a 3-day golf trip in Johor Bahru, a city down south near the Singapore border. I love these trips. It was a chance to smoke cigars, drink whiskey with other retired guys, and pretend we were still athletic. I kissed Olivia goodbye on a Thursday morning, loaded up my clubs, and hit the highway. But Malaysia has a weather temperament that you can't predict. By the time I was 2 hours south, the sky turned a bruised purple and the heavens opened up. This wasn't just rain. This was a monsoon deluge. The golf course called to say the greens were flooded and the tournament was canceled. Disappointed, but not heartbroken, I turned the car around. I decided not to call Olivia. I thought it would be a nice surprise. We could go out for a nice dinner, maybe get a bottle of wine. I imagined her face lighting up when I walked through the door early. I was such a fool. I made good time driving back. I pulled in the condo complex around 1 p.m. The security guards at the gate knew me well. They gave me a salute and lifted the boom gate without buzzing the unit. "Welcome back, Mr. Phil," the guard said, smiling. "Back so soon. Rain washed us out," I replied, waving as I drove through. I parked my car in my reserved spot, took the private elevator up to the penthouse, and keyed in my code. The lock chirped, and the heavy door swung open silently. The apartment was cool, the air conditioning humming softly. "Olivia," I called out, but not too loudly. I dropped my keys in a bowl by the door. There was no answer. I figured she might be out shopping or maybe in the shower. I walked into the living room, loosening my collar. That's when I saw it. My living room has floor-to-ceiling glass sliding doors that open up to a massive balcony. The curtains were drawn back to let the light in. The balcony has a large, plush outdoor daybed, something I bought for reading books and taking naps in the evening breeze. But there was no reading happening today. Through the glass, clear as day, I saw them. Olivia was on the daybed, and she wasn't alone. There was a man with her. I recognized him instantly, though I had only met him once in passing. His name was Peter. He was her gym trainer, a muscular guy, probably in his early 30s, with tattoos on his arms and a stupid haircut. I remember Olivia telling me once, "Oh, Peter is just a friend. He pushes me to work hard on my cardio." Well, she was certainly working on her cardio now. They were in the middle of the act. Right there, on my balcony, in broad daylight. They were shielded from the neighboring buildings by the high privacy walls and the potted palms I had watered myself, but they were completely visible from inside the living room. My first instinct was to roar. I wanted to slide that door open and shatter the glass. I wanted to scream until my throat bled. I felt this surge of heat rise up my neck, a mix of humiliation and rage that made my hands shake. But then, something else took over. Maybe it was the decades of navigating corporate boardrooms, or maybe it was just the sheer shock of it, but a cold switch flipped in my brain. "Don't move," a voice in my head said. "Don't let them know you're here." If I stormed out there now, what would happen? There would be screaming. Peter would probably scramble to put his pants on and run away. Olivia would cry. She would say it was a mistake. She would beg. It would be messy and loud and undignified. And most importantly, she would know that I knew. She would immediately go into damage control mode. I didn't want that. I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate to slow down. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling, so I braced my arm against the wall to steady the shot. I opened the camera app and switched to video. I zoomed in. The quality was crystal clear. I got their faces. I got the act. I got the background of the skyline to prove where it was. I recorded for a full minute, watching the woman I loved betray me with a man I was paying for indirectly through her gym membership. It was sickening. It was gut-wrenching. But I needed the evidence. In a divorce, especially when you have assets, hearsay is garbage. Video is gold. Once I had what I needed, I stopped the recording and slipped the phone back into my pocket. They were so engrossed in each other, they never once looked at the glass doors. They felt safe. They thought the old man was 300 kilometers away, chasing a golf ball. I backed away slowly. I stepped backward through the living room, into the foyer. I picked up my keys from the bowl, careful not to let them jingle. I opened the front door, stepped out, and closed it softly until the lock clicked. I stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the wood grain of the door. I could hear my own pulse thumping in my ears. I walked back to the elevator, went down to the garage, got into my car, and drove out of the complex. The guard waved at me again, looking confused. "Forgot something, Mr. Phil." "Yeah," I muttered, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "I forgot something important. I didn't go back to the golf trip. I drove to a hotel in the city center, the Mandarin Oriental, and checked into a room. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, staring at the wall. Most men would have kicked the door down. Most men would have thrown Peter off the balcony. But I wasn't going to do that. Olivia had humiliated me. She had brought another man into my sanctuary. She had broken the unspoken contract of our life together. As I sat there in the dark hotel room, the sadness began to fade, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I wasn't just going to divorce her. That was too easy. That was too standard. I was going to destroy her fantasy. I was going to make her feel exactly what I felt standing in that living room. I was going to manipulate her reality until she didn't know which way was up. I opened the minibar, poured myself a whiskey, and started to plan. I spent the night at the Mandarin Oriental, which is a lovely hotel if you aren't currently plotting the systematic deconstruction of your marriage. I ordered room service, stared at the ceiling, and slept for maybe 2 hours. The bed was comfortable, but felt like I was sleeping on a bed of nails. The next morning, I had to put on the performance of a lifetime. I had to go back to the scene of the crime and act like the oblivious, happy husband. It's amazing what you can do when you treat your life like a business transaction that's gone south. You don't get emotional. You look at the balance sheet, cut your losses, and manage the exit strategy. I drove back to Montquiera around noon, the time I would have originally returned from the golf trip if the weather hadn't intervened. The sun was out, mocking me. The guard at the gate gave me the same salute. "Good trip, Mr. Phil," he asked. "Fantastic," I lied. "My swing has never been better." I took the elevator up, my heart doing that nervous flutter again. But by the time the doors opened into the penthouse, I had plastered a smile on my face that felt tight, like a facelift gone slightly wrong. "Honey, I'm back," I announced, dropping my golf bag with a heavy thud. Olivia came trotting out of the bedroom. She looked immaculate. She was wearing a white sundress. Her hair was perfect, and she smelled like vanilla and innocence. If I hadn't seen what I saw yesterday, I would have thought she was an angel sent to make my retirement blissful. "Phil," she threw her arms around my neck. "I missed you. How was Johor?" I hugged her back. It was like hugging a mannequin. "It was wet," I said, which was technically the truth. "But good to see the boys. How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun?" I watched her eyes. They didn't flicker. They didn't panic. She looked right at me with those big, dark eyes and lied with the ease of a politician. "Oh, you know me," she sighed, pouting a little. "I was so bored without you. I just stayed in, ordered some grab food, and binged-watched The Crown on Netflix. I barely left the couch." I had to suppress a laugh. It would have been a hysterical, maniacal laugh if I'd let it out. The Crown? Really? I suppose she did treat herself like royalty yesterday, holding court on my balcony with the court jester Peter. "That sounds relaxing," I said, walking past her into the living room. I looked at the balcony. The daybed cushions had been fluffed. The glass door was spotless. She had cleaned the crime scene. It was impressive, really. If there was a housekeeping award for erasing infidelity, she'd win gold. That evening, we sat down for dinner. I poured us some wine, an expensive Shiraz that I usually save for special occasions. I figured, what the hell? I'm celebrating the end of an era. As she prattled on about some drama with her friend's manicure, I found myself studying her. I realized something profound. I didn't hate her. Hate requires passion, and my passion was rapidly draining away, replaced by a cold, clinical observation. I realized that our entire relationship was a transaction. I provided the security, the status, and the credit card. She provided the youth, the beauty, and the illusion of adoration. It was a contract, and looking at her now, smiling as she swirled her wine, I realized she had breached the contract. But here's the problem with divorcing a younger, beautiful woman in a tight-knit expat community: the narrative. If I just slapped the divorce papers on the table right now and showed her the video, I'd win the legal battle. Sure, but I knew Olivia. She's a master of spin. She would cry to our friends. She would tell them I was controlling, that I was too old and couldn't keep up with her needs, that she was lonely and vulnerable. She would turn herself into the victim of a loveless marriage, and Peter would be painted as the knight in shining armor who comforted her. I didn't want to be the villain in her story. I didn't want to be the sad, cuckolded old man. I wanted to expose her. Not just her actions, but her character. I wanted to peel back that mask of sanity she was wearing and show the ugly entitlement underneath. I took a sip of wine and smiled at her. "You know, Olivia, I was thinking, we should spend more time here at the condo. Maybe host a dinner party soon." "That sounds lovely," she beamed. "You have no idea," I thought. I needed a plan that would force her to drop the act. I needed her to attack me. I needed her to think she had the moral high ground. There is nothing more satisfying than watching someone climb up on a high horse, only to realize the saddle is loose. The idea came to me while I was brushing my teeth that night, looking at my own tired reflection. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, she cheated on me in our home. She made a fool of me. What if I did the same? But not for real. I didn't want an affair. I'm too old and too tired for the drama of a real mistress. I just needed the appearance of one. I needed a stunt double. I needed a performance that would rival hers. If I could make her catch me, she would explode. She would show her true colors. She would reveal that she doesn't care about love. She cares about ownership. She cares that her ATM is malfunctioning. And once she unleashed her fury, once she played the role of the scorned, righteous wife, that is when I would play the video. It's a concept in nuclear strategy called mutual assured destruction. You launch your missiles, I launch mine. But in this case, my missile was real, and hers was going to be a dud. I spit out the toothpaste and rinsed my mouth. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. Phil, I whispered to the glass, you're going to need a better actor than Peter. I went to bed and lay next to my wife. She turned over and draped an arm across my chest, probably dreaming of her next gym session. I closed my eyes and started drafting the casting call in my head. I didn't need a gym trainer. I needed a villain, and I knew exactly where to buy one. Finding a woman to help you blow up your marriage isn't something you can just Google. You can't exactly hop on TaskRabbit and search for homewrecker, intermediate level. I couldn't ask any of my friends. The expat circle in Kuala Lumpur is smaller than it looks. If I asked Bob from the golf club if I could borrow his wife for a staged infidelity scene, I'd be slapped with a lawsuit before I finished my scotch. No, I needed a professional, or at least a freelancer with flexible morals and a high appreciation for cash. I drove down to Bukit Bintang on a Wednesday night. For those who don't know, Bukit Bintang is the beating heart of KL's nightlife. It's loud, it's bright, and it smells like expensive cologne mixed with street food sauté. It's where the tourists go to party and where the wealthy locals go to show off their Ferraris in traffic that moves slower than a tectonic plate. I parked the car and headed up to a lounge called the Sky Bar. It's the kind of place where a bottle of vodka costs more than my first car did in 1982. I felt ridiculous walking in. I'm 62. I was wearing a linen blazer and loafers. I looked less like a patron and more like the owner's disappointed father coming to check the receipts. I sat at the bar and ordered a sparkling water. I scanned the room, ignoring the thumping bass of house music that sounded like a robot having a panic attack. Then I saw her. She was sitting in a booth with two other women, looking bored out of her mind. She was Russian, or at least Eastern European, tall, blonde, and striking in a way that was almost aggressive. Olivia is the cute, bubbly, girl-next-door type. This woman was the I will crush you and take your yacht type. Perfect. Her name, I later learned, was Elena. She was a freelance model and event hostess, a common profession for tall, beautiful expats in KL. I watched her deflect a drunk guy in a suit with a single, icy glare that could have frozen the equator. I picked up my drink and walked over. Confidence is key. If you walk like you own the building, people usually assume you do. Excuse me, I said, standing near her table. She looked up, already preparing a rejection. I'm not interested and I don't want a drink. I don't want to buy you a drink, I said calmly. I want to offer you a job. That got her attention. She raised an eyebrow, looking me up and down. I don't do private shows. Neither do I. I chuckled. I'm a retired architect, not a creep. I need an actress for one night. A paid performance. Fully clothed. No touching required. Just presence. She stared at me for a long moment, assessing the quality of my watch and the cut of my jacket. She signaled her friends that she'd be a minute and pointed to a quieter corner of the balcony. Talk, she said, lighting a cigarette. I laid out for her. I didn't give her the sob story about my broken heart. I gave her the business proposal. I need to stage a scene, I explained. My wife needs to walk in on me cheating. I need someone who looks intimidating. Someone who looks like an upgrade. No offense, but you look like you could ruin someone's life just by looking at them. It's a compliment. Elena let out a short, dry laugh. I have been told this, yes. I will pay you 5,000 ringgit for 2 hours of your time. All you have to do is sit on my couch, drink my expensive wine, and look smug when my wife walks in. Her eyes widened slightly. 5,000 was a good night's work for sitting on a sofa. And if she goes crazy? Elena asked, taking a drag of her cigarette. Malaysian women, they can be, how do you say spicy? She won't touch you. I promised. I'll stand between you. And if she throws anything, I'll double the fee. She crushed the cigarette out. Make it 6,000 and you have a deal. Done. We shook on it. It was the most honest relationship I'd had in months. The next step was setting the trap. On Thursday evening, I came home with a furrowed brow, acting stressed. Olivia was on the couch, scrolling through Instagram, probably liking Peter's gym selfies. "Everything okay, honey?" she asked, not looking up. "We're trouble," I sighed. "I know I'm retired, but an old client from New York is flying in for a private consultation on Friday night. He's a billionaire, very private. Wants to meet here at the condo, away from prying eyes." Olivia sat up. "Here? On a Friday night? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's going to be boring. Spreadsheets, blueprints, cigar smoke. You might want to go out with your friends. I'd hate for you to be stuck here listening to us argue about zoning laws." I watched the gears turn in her head. It was almost insulting how easy it was. I could see her thinking, "Phil is busy. Phil won't be checking on me. I can see Peter." She tried to hide her smile, but the corners of her mouth twitched. "Oh, you poor thing. Well, if you really have to work, I guess I could go to that ladies' night with Cindy and Michelle." "Please do," I said, grabbing her hand and giving it a squeeze. "Go have fun. Don't worry about me. I'll be working late." "You're the best husband," she said, kissing my cheek. I almost gagged. "I try," I said. The stage was set. I had the villain. I had the motive. And I had the unwitting victim walking right into the trap. The only thing left to do was wait for Friday night. I remember looking at the spot on a balcony where she and Peter had been together. I looked at the beautiful view of the city lights. "Enjoy it while you can, Olivia," I whispered to the empty room, "because the eviction notice is coming." Friday night arrived with the kind of humidity that makes your glasses fog up the second you step outside. But inside the penthouse, the air was crisp, controlled, and freezing cold, much like my heart. Olivia left around 7 p.m. She was dressed to kill. I'm talking about a dress that defied the laws of physics and heels that looked like medieval torture devices. She smelled like a cloud of Chanel and deception. "Have fun with your billionaire client, honey," she called out from the door, checking her makeup in the hallway mirror one last time. "Don't work too hard. I'll try to keep it professional," I replied from the sofa, holding a fake stack of blueprints. The moment the door clicked shut, I dropped the papers. I didn't have a billionaire client. The only thing I was building tonight was a trap. I waited exactly 10 minutes to make sure she was in her car and gone. Then I texted Elena. "The Eagle has flown the coop. You're clear for landing." Elena arrived 20 minutes later. When she walked in, the temperature in the room seemed to drop another 5 degrees. She was wearing a trench coat, which was ridiculous for Kuala Lumpur, but when she took it off, she revealed a sleek black dress that cost more than my first divorce settlement. She looked like the kind of woman who eats men for breakfast and spits out the cufflinks. "Nice place," she said, looking around the penthouse with mild disinterest. "Good view. Bad feng shui." "Thanks," I said. "Are you ready?" "I'm always ready. Where's the wine? We got to work. Or rather, we got to staging." It felt absurd, like two kids building a pillow fort, except we were two adults building a crime scene. I opened a bottle of Penfold's Grange, a vintage I had been saving for my 65th birthday, but I figured destroying my marriage was a special enough occasion. I poured 2 glasses. We messed up the throw pillows on the sofa to make it look like a wrestling match had just occurred. I dimmed the lights to that romantic jazz bar level. I put on a playlist titled Late Night Lo-Fi. Then came the costume change. "Here," I said, handing Elena one of my white dress shirts. "Put this on over your dress. It's the classic morning after look." She held the shirt up with 2 fingers. "It is Ralph Lauren. Acceptable." She slipped it on, unbuttoned at the top, rolling up the sleeves. She looked effortlessly guilty. I unbuttoned my own shirt halfway and messed up my hair. I caught my reflection in the window, a 62-year-old man trying to look like a ravishing lover. I looked more like I had just survived a mild electric shock, but it would have to do. "Now, what?" Elena asked, sitting on the sofa and crossing her long legs. "Now," I said, sitting close to her but not touching, "we wait." I knew Olivia. I knew her patterns. She said she was going to a ladies' night, which meant she was going to meet Peter. But Peter is a gym trainer. He probably has an early shift on Saturdays. Olivia isn't a night owl. She usually comes home around 10:30 or 11 o'clock to check on me, which is code for making sure I'm still safely stored in my box so she doesn't feel guilty. We waited. The silence was heavy. Elena scrolled on her phone, looking bored. I sat there sweating, my stomach doing backflips. At 10:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the smart home app. Front gate opened. "She's here," I whispered. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Relax," Elena said, not looking up from her phone. "You look like you are about to confess to a murder. Breathe. Sip the wine. Laugh." The elevator hummed. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life. Ding. The elevator doors slid open. We heard heels clicking on the marble floor of the foyer. Then the beep, beep, beep of the digital lock. "Action," Elena murmured, clinking her glass against mine. I forced a loud, hearty laugh. "Oh, you are terrible," I boomed, trying to sound like a man having the time of his life. The doors swung open. Olivia walked in, humming a tune. She stopped dead in her tracks. The scene before her was undeniable. Her husband, shirtless, drinking wine, with a stunning, blonde Russian woman wearing his shirt, sitting on her favorite spot on the sofa. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. It was the kind of silence that precedes a tsunami. I saw her brain trying to process the data. Phil, blonde, shirt, wine, betrayal. Then the dam broke. "What is this?" she screamed. Her voice was so high-pitched it could have shattered the wine glasses. I jumped up, acting, of course, spilling a little wine on the carpet. "Olivia, you're home early. Who is she?" Olivia roared, dropping her clutch bag on the floor. She marched into the living room, her finger pointing like a loaded weapon. "Who is this woman in my house?" Elena didn't flinch. She took a slow sip of wine, looked Olivia up and down, and smirked. It was a masterpiece of dismissal. "I'm Elena," she purred, her Russian accent thick and syrupy. "And you must be the daughter?" "Oh, that was mean. I didn't pay her to say that. That was a bonus." Olivia's face turned a shade of red. I didn't know existed in nature. "Daughter? I am his wife. You get out. Get out of my house." She turned to me, and the fury in her eyes was genuine. This wasn't just anger. It was indignation. It was the rage of a queen who found a peasant sitting on her throne. "How could you?" she screamed, slapping my chest. "I leave you alone for 3 hours. 3 hours. And you bring this hooker into our home." "Hey," I stammered, holding up my hands in mock surrender. "Let's not use names. We were just talking business, sort of business." She looked at Elena's attire. "She's wearing your shirt, Phil. Do you think I'm stupid?" "Yes," I thought. "I really do. I can explain," I said, giving the standard cheater's line. "Shut up. Don't you dare speak." She was hyperventilating now. Tears were starting to well up, but they were tears of rage, not heartbreak. "I sacrificed everything for you. I take care of you. I've been the perfect wife. And this is how you repay me? With a younger woman?" The irony was so thick I could taste it. It tasted like expensive Shiraz. "Get her out," Olivia screeched, grabbing a throw pillow and hurling it at Elena. Elena caught the pillow with one hand, calm as a monk. She set it down gently. "I think your wife is hysterical, Phil," Elena said coolly. "Maybe she needs a nap." "Don't you talk to me," Olivia yelled. She turned back to me, shaking. "I want a divorce. You hear me? I'm taking everything. The condo, the car, the accounts. You're going to die alone in a nursing home, you dirty old man." She was really getting into it now. She felt powerful. She had the moral high ground. She had caught me red-handed. She was the victim, and in 2024, being the victim is the most powerful currency there is. I stood there, head bowed, letting her rant. I let her call me every name in the book. I let her threaten to destroy my reputation in the expat club. I let her vent all that self-righteous venom. I needed her to feel totally, 100% justified. I needed her to climb all the way to the top of Mount Moral Superiority. Because the higher she climbed, the harder the fall was going to be. "Are you done?" I asked quietly after she ran out of breath. "Done?" she scoffed, wiping a mascara-stained tear from her cheek. "I'm just getting started. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning." "Okay," I said. I reached for the TV remote on the coffee table. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "Are you watching TV while I'm leaving you?" "No," I said, my voice changing. The bumbling, guilty husband act vanished. My back straightened. My eyes went cold. "I just want to show you something before you call the lawyer." I pointed the remote at the massive 65-inch screen on the wall. "Elena," I said calmly, "you might want to pour yourself another glass. The show is about to start." The thing about modern technology is that clarity can be a real killer. Back in the day, if you caught someone cheating on a grainy VHS tape, they could claim it was a smudge on the lens or a Sasquatch. But this was 2024. I had a 4K TV and a smartphone with a camera better than what NASA used to land on the moon. I pressed the enter button on the remote. The screen flickered from the generic no-signal blue to a crisp, high-definition video file. The room went silent. The only sound was the air conditioning humming and the audio coming from the TV speakers. The distinct sound of wind rushing over a balcony and the distant honking of KL traffic. On the screen, the image was unmistakable. It was my balcony. The sun was high. The bougainvillea flowers were bright pink. And there, center stage on the daybed, were two figures entangled in a very enthusiastic, very compromising embrace. One was Olivia. The other was Peter. I paused the video right at a moment where Peter's face was turned toward the camera and Olivia's head was thrown back in what I assume was ecstasy. Though with Peter's form, it might have been a muscle cramp. I looked at Olivia. The transformation was fascinating. As an architect, I know a lot about structural integrity. I know exactly how much pressure a beam can take before it snaps. I was watching Olivia's structural integrity fail in real time. Her mouth, previously open to scream at me, stayed open, but no sound came out. Her face went from that angry, flushed red to a ghostly, sickly white. It was like watching the blood drain out of her body through the floorboards. "Recognize the view?" I asked, my voice conversational, like I was asking if she recognized a song on the radio. "I believe that's my daybed. I just had those cushions dry cleaned, by the way. Send me the bill for that." Olivia blinked rapidly. She looked at the TV, then at me, then at Elena, then back at the TV. Her brain was misfiring. She had just spent 10 minutes screaming about the sanctity of marriage, and now she was staring at a 65-inch billboard of her own hypocrisy. That's not," she stammered. Her voice was a squeak. "That's fake. You made that. It's AI. I actually laughed. "AI? Olivia, you give me too much credit. I can barely work the microwave. That is a video I took yesterday afternoon, when I came home early from the golf trip." You were here?" she whispered. I stood right there in the living room. I pointed to the sliding doors. "I watched you. I watched Peter. I watched you betray everything we built for a cheap thrill with a guy who wears tank tops to dinner." Elena, who had been sipping her wine quietly, let out a snort. She looked at the TV screen and nodded appreciatively. "Good lighting," she commented, "but the angle is unflattering for the chin." Olivia whipped her head around to glare at Elena, but the fire was gone. She looked small. And speaking of betrayals, I continued, stepping closer to her. "Let's talk about Elena." Olivia flinched. "You cheated too. You're just as bad as me. You brought a whore into our house." "Careful," Elena warned, her voice dropping an octave. "I'm not a whore. I am a freelance consultant." "She's an actress, Olivia," I said, dropping the bomb. "I hired her. We haven't done anything. She's been sitting on that couch for 20 minutes, checking her Instagram while we waited for you." I gestured between Elena and myself. "This was a mirror. I wanted you to see what you look like. I wanted you to feel the disrespect. I wanted you to stand on your high horse and preach about loyalty so I could knock the legs out from under you." The realization hit her like a physical slap. She realized she had walked into a trap. She realized her righteous anger was based on a lie, while my calm demeanor was based on the truth. "You tricked me," she said, tears starting to form again. But these weren't the angry tears of a scorned wife. These were the terrified tears of a woman who realizes the ATM is about to be unplugged. "I didn't trick you," I said coldly. "I exposed you." She tried to pivot. It was a desperate maneuver. She rushed toward me, grabbing my arm. "Phil, please." It meant nothing. "Peter, he was just there. I was lonely. You're always playing golf or reading your books. I needed attention. It was a mistake." I pulled my arm away. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is leaving the toilet seat up. Sleeping with your gym trainer on my balcony, while I'm paying for your car, your clothes, and your entire existence? That is a choice. But I love you, she wailed. The volume was coming back now. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll stop seeing him. I promise. It's too late, Olivia, I said. The minute I saw you two, the contract was void. You didn't sacrifice your youth for me. You leased it, and you broke the terms of the lease. I checked my watch. It is now 11:15 p.m. You have 30 minutes. She froze. What? 30 minutes, I repeated. To go into that bedroom, pack a bag, and get out of my apartment. You can't kick me out, she shrieked. This is my home, too. I have rights. Actually, you don't, I corrected her. The condo isn't a trust. Your name isn't on the deed. Your name isn't on the lease. In fact, legally speaking, you're a guest who has overstayed their welcome. And since I have video evidence of adultery, which I've already sent to my lawyer's cloud storage, I don't think you want to call the police and have them watch the movie too. She looked at the TV again. Peter was currently doing something athletic on the screen. She looked back at me with pure hatred. Where am I supposed to go? She cried. It's the middle of the night. Go to Peter's, I suggested. I'm sure he has a futon, or maybe a yoga mat you can sleep on. Elena stood up and smoothed down her dress. 30 minutes is generous, she noted. I would have given 10. Olivia looked at the two of us, the calm old man and the towering Russian model. She realized she had lost. The tantrum wasn't working. The tears weren't working. The guilt trip wasn't working. She let out a scream of frustration, a primal sound of defeat, and ran into the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I sat back down on the sofa and picked up my wine glass. My hand was finally steady. That was intense, Elena said, reaching for the bottle to pour herself a refill. Do I get a bonus for the daughter comment? Absolutely, I said, clinking my glass against hers. Best money I've ever spent. We sat there in silence, listening to the frantic sounds of suitcases being zipped and hangers being thrown around in the next room. It was the sound of my life being decluttered. I looked at the view of the Petronas Towers glowing in the night. They looked beautiful, unshakable. I felt exactly the same way. The sound of a Louis Vuitton suitcase being dragged across a marble floor is a very specific noise. It's usually the sound of a vacation starting, but in this case, it sounded like the grinding gears of a life falling apart. Olivia emerged from the bedroom 28 minutes later. She had managed to pack 2 massive suitcases, mostly filled with the clothes and jewelry I had bought her. She looked like a refugee from Fashion Week. Her mascara was smeared, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing sweatpants. The glamour was gone. The lady of the manor was just a woman with a lot of baggage, literally and figuratively. She stopped in the living room. Elena was still there, scrolling on her phone, looking like she was waiting for an Uber. Olivia looked at me. I could see the gears turning one last time, looking for a way to manipulate the situation. She opened her mouth, probably to launch a final guilt trip or a tearful plea. Don't, I said, holding up a hand. Just don't. The credits are rolling, Olivia. The movie is over. She clamped her mouth shut, let out a noise that was half sob, half snort, and dragged her bags to the door. She struggled with the heavy door, waiting for me to be a gentleman and help her. I took a sip of my wine and watched. Eventually, she shoved the bags through, turned to give me one last look of pure venom, and slammed the door behind her. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was full of relief. Elena stood up and stretched, like a cat that had just finished a long nap. Well, she said, picking up her clutch, that was entertaining. I should charge you an entertainment tax. I chuckled and pulled out an envelope from my jacket pocket. 6,000 ringgit, as agreed, plus an extra 1,000 for the daughter comment. That was improvised genius. She took the envelope, counted the cash with the speed and precision of a bank teller, and nodded. You are a scary man, Phil. Remind me never to cheat on you. Don't worry, Elena, I said. I think I'm retired from the dating game for a while. She walked to the door, stepping over the scuff marks Olivia's suitcase had left. Good luck, Phil. If you ever need to stage a murder, call me. I know people. I'll keep that in mind. And then, she was gone. I was alone. The apartment was quiet. I walked out onto the balcony, the scene of the crime. I looked at the daybed. I grabbed the cushions, the ones Peter had defiled, and I threw them over the railing. I watched them tumble down 30 stories into the darkness. I buy new ones. That night, I didn't drink any more wine. I ordered a greasy pepperoni pizza, sat on the floor, and ate it with my hands. It was the best meal I'd had in 2 years. The next few weeks were a blur of administrative violence. My lawyer, a sharp Malaysian guy named Razor, yes, really, thought the video was hilarious. "Mr. Phil," he said, wiping tears from his eyes, "this is the easiest case I've had all year. The condo isn't a trust. The car is a lease in your name. She has no claim to the assets because you were never legally married under Malaysian civil law. It was a customary arrangement we never registered, remember?" The details. I always pay attention to the details. I gave Olivia a small settlement, enough to get an apartment and a used car, but not enough to maintain her Princess of Kuala Lumpur lifestyle. I call it a severance package. She tried to fight for more, threatening to release stories to the tabloids, but Razor reminded her lawyer that we had a 4K video of her and Peter that could easily find its way onto the internet. She signed the papers, but Kuala Lumpur felt tainted. Every time I drove past the gym, I thought of Peter. Every time I went to the mall, I thought of Olivia's credit card bills. So, I did what any sensible retired man would do. I moved. I sold the penthouse for a tidy profit and moved north to Penang, specifically Georgetown. It's an island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for street art, colonial architecture, and the best street food on the planet. I bought a renovated pre-war shop house. It has high ceilings, a courtyard with a koi pond, and 0 balconies visible from the street. 6 months later, life was good. My biggest stress was deciding whether to have char kway teow or laksa for lunch. I walked everywhere. I lost 10 pounds. I looked younger. The toxicity of the last few years had drained out of my system. I was sitting in a local coffee shop, Capitium, drinking kopi o, black coffee with sugar, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Usually, I ignore these. It's always someone trying to sell me insurance or tell me my bank account has been compromised. But for some reason, maybe intuition, I answered. "Hello, Phil." The voice was small, hesitant, but I knew it instantly. "Hello, Olivia," I said. My pulse didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt nothing, just mild curiosity, like looking at an old newspaper. I didn't think you'd pick up," she said. "I almost didn't. I'm eating breakfast." "What do you want, Olivia?" There was a pause. I could hear traffic in the background on her end. She sounded tired. "I miss you, Phil." I took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter and sweet, just like this moment. "You missed the credit card, Olivia. Let's be honest." "No," she insisted, her voice cracking. "I really miss you. Peter is gone." "Oh." I raised an eyebrow, though she couldn't see it. Trouble in paradise? Did he run out of protein powder? "He's a jerk," she sniffled. "When the money stopped, he changed. He said I was high maintenance. He left me for a 22-year-old influencer. Can you believe that? I can actually. It sounds like karma has a sense of humor." "I made a mistake, Phil," she cried. "I was stupid. I realize now how good you were to me. You were a gentleman. You took care of me. I'm lonely, Phil. I'm staying in a studio apartment in Cheras. It's awful. Can we just talk? I could come visit you, wherever you are." I looked around my new life. The sun was streaming through the shutters. The old uncle at the next table was reading the paper. The smell of frying noodles was in the air. It was peaceful. It was mine. "No, Olivia," I said softly. "Please," she begged. "Why did you have to do that thing with a Russian woman? Why did you have to trick me? If you had just yelled at me, maybe we could have fixed it. But you were so cold. You did it to hurt me. You did it to teach me a lesson, didn't you?" I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "You have it all wrong, Olivia," I said. "I didn't hire Elena to teach you a lesson. I didn't stage that scene to fix you or to punish you." "Then why?" she whispered. "I did it to burn the bridge," I said. "I did it so that when I looked back, I wouldn't see a wife I lost. I would see a hypocrite I escaped. I did it to make sure that I would never, ever miss you." There was silence on the line. "Goodbye, Olivia." I hung up. I blocked the number. I put the phone down on the table and signaled the waiter. "Boss," I called out. "One more kopi o and a plate of toast." I watched the steam rise from the coffee. I was alone in a strange city, 63 years old, with no wife and no family nearby. and I had never been happier. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you handle a betrayal. Phil didn't just get mad. He got even, and then he got free. It's a masterclass in emotional detachment and tactical revenge. What do you guys think? Was Phil too harsh? Or did Olivia get exactly what she ordered? And what about the mutual assured destruction strategy? Would you ever go that far to prove a point? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them, and I'm dying to see whose side you're on. If you enjoyed this story of tropical justice, please do me a solid. Hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And subscribe if you haven't already. You don't want to miss the next one. Until next time, stay loyal, stay smart. And if you're going to cheat, maybe check the balcony first. Peace.